Welcome to the SLA Lunch and Learn for the spring semester. We're very pleased to have Wenda Webster Fischer here. She's currently a research assistant at the Stroll Keaton Ogden Law Firm. She's had a diverse experience in library and information centers, including working in academic, hospital, law firm, libraries, as well as owning her own information business. And we're very excited to have her share some of the experiences and just some seeds of knowledge to pass on to us as well. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been coming to the UK campus for years, and for some reason this time it's beautiful spring, and it's just a really pretty campus, and I think they've done a lot of work in your building and all around, and it just struck me this time it's just a really nice campus, and it's sort of nice to be able to take a break and come from Louisville and get to do something a little different. What I'd like to do is be able to talk about what you want to hear. And I'm not very good. I've been out of school for a long time, and I'm not around students that often, so I'm not very good at guessing what you might be interested in. So I would love for you to ask questions at any point. Don't hold them till the end, and I will try to talk about the things that are of interest to you. There is no dumb question. I may not be able to answer it, and sometimes I may not be able to tell you why something happened or I did something a certain way, but I will be glad to try. I thought what I would do initially is just tell you where I have been since I graduated with my master's, just so you'll know, and give you a little background, and then we'll take a sort of spring from there. I did my graduate and undergraduate degrees at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and when I was there, I was able to work in their reference department, working with the reference librarian. So that was really my first library information job, and that, of course, is an academic library. My first job out of school was at another academic library in what is now University of Louisiana at Monroe. It was NLU at the time. I was their health sciences librarian. From there, I moved to Louisville to take an assistant director position in the hospital library at Norton and Coaster Children's Hospitals, which is still Norton and Coaster Children's Hospital. That's the name. It's gone through various names, but it's back to that name. From there, I owned my own information business for about 10 years and actually worked out of my home. I didn't work in my pajamas, but I did work out of my home. And then finally, and where I currently am employed, is Stroll Keaton Ogden, which is a law firm based in Kentucky. We have 5 offices in Kentucky. The 2 largest are in Louisville and Lexington, and I am in the Louisville office. So that spans a lot of different work environments. At the time, the University of Tennessee was probably 30,000 students, so that's a big academic library, undergraduate library. When I worked for myself, other than subcontract work, it was me. I have supervised employees. I think the largest department I ever worked in, where I actually had responsibility for other employees, was at the hospital, and at one time we had 10 employees. We had a media center as part of that hospital. And I have worked with employees where I was not actually responsible for them on the organizational chart, but trained them and was responsible for their work environment and their work product. I hate to admit it, but when I started, there was no internet. Well, there was internet, but we didn't know about it. Online availability was just starting to happen, and it was happening in the medical environment with the National Library of Medicine, the MedLARS system, and Medline. And I happened to be lucky enough to be in an environment where they were bringing that on, so I got in on that pretty early on. Believe it or not, at that point, in order to use that system, you had to go to Bethesda and take a 5-day training course. So that's sort of how things have changed, it's a challenge to keep up. And you're going to see the same things. You know, what you think now is so cutting edge, and you've seen it, I'm sure, since you've been in school, it's going to change on you. So that's certainly a challenge that anybody has. It doesn't matter where you are. So I'll stop just a minute and see if we got any questions before we go on. Okay. I thought what I would do is share a couple of observations with you that are mine, and then a couple that I have gotten from somebody else that I thought were interesting and maybe worth talking about. Trying to help you understand what I perceive, and it's certainly my opinion, and take it for what it's worth. But the differences that you might find in a specialized environment or an information center that's not connected to a university or is not public, but is what they call more special. And I know that there are special libraries in the academic environment. I mean, some of you work in them, and I'm really not even talking about them. I'm taking you out of that academic environment, because that academic environment gives you a lot and demands a lot that you don't necessarily get when you go into other sectors. I looked at a blog called Letters to a Young Librarian while I was thinking about things to talk about today, and there were several different pieces about things that I learned in library school or didn't learn, or being in a certain environments. And there was one piece called 10 Things I Didn't Learn in Library School. And of the 10 things that this particular writer didn't learn, there were 2 that I thought might be worth talking about. Things that this person was totally unprepared for, and things that I have found have had to deal with. The first one was something that he termed janitorial work. I think he worked in a public library. And I can't say that I have necessarily had to do janitorial work. I probably have if I would think far enough back, or maybe could remember a time. But what I think about when I think about that concept is you sort of do whatever it takes. And that's true in any job, and I hope that you would do that in any job. But I think that you will find in a special information center environment, you just do not know what's going to happen and what you're going to be asked to do. And a lot of times you're going to be in a small, you may be the only person. So if something's going to get done, you have to do it. And it helps to have the attitude that, okay, I can do this, rather than, okay, this is what I went to graduate school for. I have done everything from moving libraries to shelving books to firing employees to making library runs to other libraries to photocopying, and then on the other end of the scale to going to very nice events and to entertaining, to being asked to do presentations in environments where I knew absolutely nobody. So it's not necessarily bad things, but you just don't know. And I think the people that do well are the ones that are willing to say, okay, I can do that. The second thing, or I don't know if it was second on his list, but another item on his list that I agree with are complaints. He said he just didn't think that he was going to have to deal with so many complaints. And I don't know that I have had a lot of complaints, so to speak, but I certainly deal with opinions on a daily basis. And they're very strong opinions often. And these opinions a lot of times come from people that have a vested interest in where I'm working. The public in a public library setting does. Students and professors and staff in an academic library do. But when you get into a hospital where the medical staff have actually paid dues to support that library, or you get into a law firm where the attorneys are actually owners, it is a business, they have a little more of a vested interest in what you're doing and how you're spending your money and what you're buying and what you're not buying. And so I find that you may be asked to do things that you don't agree with. You may not be able to do some things that you've probably been taught you should do as a good information professional. And I'm not talking about necessarily bad things or illegal things, but it's just a give and take that I think you might not, until you have to do it, you might not think about or realize that that happens. There are a couple other things that I would put on that list. When I train staff, one thing I say to them is don't say no. And when you're training staff and when you have staff that have somebody else to ask before, especially in a reference setting where they have somebody to ask before they give a final answer, you want them to, if they don't know or they can't figure it out, you don't want them to be the final. You want them to be able to ask somebody else and make sure that they got it right in a training situation. But I take it further than that. And I learned this in the hospital setting from my boss at the time, who is now the director of the libraries and a whole lot of other stuff at the University of New Mexico. The answer may be no. You can't find it, or there is nothing. That may be the real answer. But I find that you will be better served if you can package it in a more positive way, because it just reflects better on you. And that'll get to my next point about marketing. If you say, I haven't been able to find that exact point, this is as close as I can get, and you're actually able to put something in somebody's hands. To me, I think that that's really important, and I think that in a specialized setting, that's something that I just want to see people do. So it may not be what the person was looking for, but the person is able to see the work product, able to know what's out there and have some idea, and also knows that you actually did something that you just didn't off the top of your head. And I'm not saying that someone would think this necessarily, but I think the perception that you want to make is that you're a professional and you understand the issue, and here is, in your professional opinion, what is available. And then the other thing that I would put on my list is politics. And I think everybody has politics. And I know probably the academic environment probably is as politicky as it gets. But for me personally, that is hard. I don't deal with politics well. And you have to. You have to be able to keep your mouth shut or speak up, depending on what needs to happen. I think that the way that I have heard people say that they deal with that is to not take anything personally. And I think that's true. The person that was just very persnickety doesn't necessarily dislike you. It's just maybe he or she's having a bad day. And just because you were told, no, you cannot do something, or we cannot afford this, or we cannot do this, and then they turn around and spend $50,000 on a box seat somewhere, doesn't mean what you ask, they don't like you. It's just politics or priorities. But you do see that a lot as far as you don't have, you may not have as much control over where the money goes and how things are done. So let me stop there and see if we've got any questions.
I'm curious about your time as an independent consultant. Right now I'm looking for work in a medical library somewhere, but my ultimate goal is to do that, is to set up a little information brokerage company. How difficult is it to get that started? Are there any fields that seem to lend themselves to this? I had a computer consulting business back in the 80s and 90s, and I know I got that started because I landed a fairly large client, a bank, and that was able to, let me get my offices and hire a couple of staff and stuff and get me through that first year.
Right.
Was it the same with you when you set yours up, or did you go out and cold call picking up clients?
I think everybody could hear the questions about starting an independent information business. I did not have a big client that I then bounced off. I did sort of cold call. A lot of people do what you're talking about, though. It is difficult. It is very difficult. It's not impossible. There are people all over the United States and internationally that do it and have been doing it for probably 15 or 20 years. There's an association, AIIP, and that's definitely the group to be connected to. They will say to you, there's not any particular type of service that does well or does better. They say you need to pursue what your interests are and what you're good at. I will tell you that one mistake that I made, I feel, I felt that when I started, I needed to break away totally from where I was, which was the hospital. Although I did, a lot of my clients were healthcare and medical, but they came sort of in an indirect way, and I think that was a mistake. I should have definitely hung on to I didn't break away in that I totally ignored them, but I could have taken a lot more advantage of where I had been and all those people, and I did not. And I think that that was one of my mistakes. A lot of people will get some kind of job and then start their business on the side, and then as that grows, they're able to go into that full time. I personally could not do that. I'm just not that kind of person. I mean, I guess I could if I had to. I guess you could probably do anything if you have to, but I just did not want to do that. I would rather focus and be able to do it and not have to worry about working 20 hours a week somewhere else. It takes an awful lot of marketing. Cold calling I don't think works unless you've got some, there's a really good mix or match. Most people tell you cold calling does not work. Marketing, networking does.
I was thinking of trying to market myself to small clinics and maybe even independent doctors, physicians out there that don't have medical library or easy access to medical library, and possibly trying to market myself to that group.
You could try that, and there are people that have tried that. I would suggest that you also look at the healthcare companies that are providing services to the healthcare industry. People that are used to working with consultants and businesses are more likely to work.
Subcontract out
Yeah,
stuff too.
yeah. Any other questions? I think I have a few more minutes. Let me talk a little bit about some things that I think are unique to special library settings, or things that you definitely will encounter, I think. And I've already hit on one, that's marketing. Most of the time, you're going to have to market yourself. You're going to have to market your facility, your service, and your existence. Because most of the special libraries are in places that live and die by making money, or bringing in clients, or able to survive. And so if they have to cut corners, if they have to cut dollars, if they have to decrease, then you are on the table with everybody else that may or may not get included in that cut. Likewise, if they're going to add services, if they're going to renovate, if they're going to do anything, you're also on the table competing with everybody else, every other department. So the more people know you, the more they know what you can do, you're gonna, I feel like you're gonna be better off. So you need to get out. In the Louisville office, we have 3 floors of attorney space, and I walk almost every day. I will literally walk all 3 floors, just walk the floor, because they see me. They may think of something that they wanted to ask me. If you have a good product and you do good work, they usually will tell their coworkers. And so marketing is not only selling yourself, but it's also making sure that you provide something that's good and useful, and they know who did it, and you did it on terms that were good for them. You either did it quickly, or you did it under budget, or you did it with no budget, or whatever. But I have found that it's a lot easier for me to do something if they'll say, an attorney might say, can you do this, or have you ever seen this kind of thing? And if I think about, okay, how could I do this, and I do it, then 3 months later, another attorney will say to me, you did this for so-and-so, can you do this for me? And you sort of get, you get a little effect going like that that'll help you build the business, because it is building your business, building your client base. You're not normally going to be a revenue producing department. You might be, but you're probably not going to be. You're probably going to be overhead. So you're always going to be looking for ways to come to the table with value. We bill our hours. We can. We don't have to, but I actually can bill my hours, and I'm still not considered a revenue producing department in that context. I think that the workflow is faster. I know, especially in the medical library, you're going to get expectations of fast turnaround, but there's nothing like what I have seen in either the law firm or the hospital. The expectations, not always, but the expectations of being able to do it, drop what you're doing. You got 3 things that have got to go like this, okay, then we'll figure out how to do all 3. And they don't want to know what you're having to do to make it happen. They just need what they want when they want it. And it's fast. It can be dead, but it can be fast. And I think that and that's what I like. That's why I'm where I am. I like that fast pace, high expectation environment, but some people don't. And I think that that's something pretty unique to the to some special environments. Another thing that's sort of interesting is I feel like that environment, a lot of places really don't value the master's degree. I hate to say that, but I really feel that. It's not unheard of at all. In fact, it's quite common to go into large law firms, not maybe the largest, but large law firms, and the person that's in charge has been there 30 years and started out in the mailroom. And there is no requirement for a master's. Now there are, my job requires a master's, but that's because somebody before me had a master's and built that into the job description. My job at the hospital required a master's, but that's because somebody before me built that in. Probably then, and I would have to think a minute, maybe even now, in the hospital libraries in the state of Kentucky, most of them are not run by master's level librarians. And that's different. You get to the academic environment and it's totally opposite. You're not going to get, I think, unless things have changed, you're not going to get a job probably in a university library with a professional position without a master's. And so that's something that I just throw it out there just so you will see my observation. I don't know that it's not anything I can necessarily do anything about, but let me stop with that and see if we've got any more questions. Ashley, did you have a question from?
Yes, a student who couldn't be here emailed us and would like to ask that they've worked in public libraries for the last 5 years, which has been their entire career in libraries. And after a year in library school, they found that they really prefer medical libraries, and that's really of interest to them. And they'd like advice from you for someone like them who has experience in the public libraries but would like to maybe switch over or start careers in the public library or the medical library. So how challenging is that, or what would they need to highlight, or what should they seek out? Or just any advice that you have for someone in that situation.
I wonder, the question about trying to get into the medical library field, I wonder if they're more interested in academic or hospital. Do you have any idea?
They just mentioned a career in medical libraries.
I have heard people say that it doesn't your undergraduate degree or your interest doesn't really make that much difference. So you don't have to have a degree in biology or microbiology or the sciences to get into the field, but it helps and it makes it easier on you. And I would agree with that. So I don't think that the background is going to necessarily make that much difference. I would say for somebody like that, my advice would be networking, to join those groups where the medical librarians are going to be, either MLA or SLA, or if you're in Kentucky, there is a local in Louisville. There's a Kentucky Medical Library Association group. SLA, the Kentucky chapter, has some maybe not healthcare librarians. I would say that, because they are going to be the ones that are going to know where the jobs are, going to know what they're looking for, and can sort of help. If you're not landlocked, if you can move, then I would say at the national level to start trying to network some.
I was curious, what percentage would you say of the work you do now is in assisting users, reference service?
5%. I do. I have probably a little of a unique job. I have an assistant that probably works about 80% of her time in the library. And although we are electronic, we still have a lot of paper and a lot of filing kind of thing. She does all of that. We have a very rudimentary kind of catalog, mostly so we can keep up with what we have, and my boss can do the administrative part of ordering. And she does all that. So I basically don't do anything to keep the place running other than when somebody comes in and point me to the statutes kind of thing. And we're a very small facility, and I mean, literally from here to there is about the size of my facility. And attorneys and their staff, for the most part, are very self-sufficient and want to do it themselves. So I spend probably 95% of my time doing research. I'm either doing legal research, or I do a lot of business. I do a lot of what we call competitive intelligence research, where we're looking at a potential client, we're looking at a potential case. So I don't do 5%. Now, when I was in the hospital, that was totally different, because you had residents, you had medical students, we had nursing staff that did need help. And so that was probably, could have been 50% of my time. But
of course, you're using those reference skills and doing your in the research part of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Good question.
Do you feel that with the current economic climate, especially in business settings, that corporate libraries, information centers, and those types of special libraries are being cut more? Or do you feel like there is there potential for growth? What have you seen?
The question is, do I feel that the businesses are cutting library services and their information centers more? And I would say, overall, yes. I mean, I think what you see in the economy is going to filter down. So yes, I think when I look back at the hospitals, it's been 15 years since I was in the hospital environment, and those facilities are probably half of what they were when I was working there. Both in their staff has been cut, or they're just not there anymore. I know now in the legal field, we're seeing staff locally being cut, being downsized. So yes, I think, and when I look at colleagues across the nation that I've known about, yes, I think so. That being said, I think there's opportunity. If you cannot go to where the jobs are, it's a lot harder. You sort of have to make your own, and you may have to patch work together. You may not be able to get a full-time position, but you might be able to get 2 part-times. I've seen people do that. But yes, I think with that, yes. Having said that, I was asked not too long ago if I knew of anybody in the Chicago area, because they were trying to hire, and then I know of a couple positions that are open and are going to come up and soon locally. So,
if you are landlocked with your job search, so, like I'm going to be a recent grad soon, I'm graduating soon, but I'm looking to stay in the area due to a number of different issues in my life. What advice do you have for someone who thinks geography is very important? And
network. Definitely network. The more people you know, the more people that know that you are looking. I would say something that I did not do well when I was faced with that situation, that I would rethink, was even though I thought I was landlocked, so I didn't look outside the area. And I don't think it's bad to do that. And I don't mean go and interview knowing that you're not going to take the job or that you can't move. But you never know who knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And just to get out and see what the market is, talk to people, maybe not apply for positions, but at least, I guess what I'm saying is, even though you're maybe landlocked, put your feelers out, put your antenna up. Because I have seen things happen that you just, weren't on paper, or you didn't know about unless you talked to somebody. It didn't show up anywhere. Or you may, I guess the other thing to consider is, especially when you're starting out, you may have to piece together some things. You may not be able to get a full-time, but you may be able to get a really nice part-time and then fill in. Well, there's more ways to do things than the 9-to-5 job that you hope you're going to have for a while. And I do realize that benefits and other things like that are quite an issue too. So I know you've got a lot to look at there. But I guess I would say I would encourage people to be creative. And I think it's not nearly as much of a stigma now for you going out in the job market and piecing together things or having a variety of experiences and maybe work experiences, where when I was starting out, stability was a big thing. They wanted to see somebody that could go in a position and stay there for 5 years or work their way up. And that's just not the work environment anymore in a lot of places. So I don't think you're going to be disregarded because you're creative if you sell it in the right way. Anything else? I do have my business cards if you would like them, or long distance if you would like them. If you will contact me, I'll be glad to give you my contact information. Please feel free to take one if you would like. And if you are ever in Louisville and you'd like a tour, if you're in Lexington and you'd like a tour of our Lexington facility, I think I could arrange that. If you have questions, please feel free. It was nice to be with each of you, and I wish you luck. It's an exciting time.
We'd like to thank you for coming.
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful talk and a lot of information, so we'd like to give you that.
Oh, thank you.
And if anyone is interested in contacting you, and we can just email SLA's email, and we'll forward your information along. So, but thank you again.
Thank you.